something happened that was really funny. And what I've done in my book, there's a part of my book that reads like a novel, where I describe Admiral Solano, who was in charge of the Spanish fleet. Not very flattering. But Admiral Solano tried to take his flagship into Pensacola Bay, and he got grounded on a sandbar. He's a short-tempered guy, and he hoisted flags, and he says, "We're going back to abandon." Galvez was in charge of the land contingent, plus he had his own small fleet, American Spanish fleet. And he said, "Hold fast until you receive further orders." That night, he got a chief petty officer and 2 swabbies. They went out in a longboat with a knotted rope and weight on the end of it. And all night, they put soundings across the entrance to Pensacola Bay. They found a channel that allowed their ships to enter. So when the sun rose the next morning, Galvez hoisted flags, said, "Follow me." And he led the charge right into Pensacola Bay, and all the other Spanish ships followed him. He stopped, he detached a small detachment on Santa Rosa Island, which was the ocean side of the entrance to the bay, and put an artillery there to protect his backside in case British ships tried to follow him into the bay. It's not very flattering, but I like to think of the arrangement of the forts at Pensacola, because there were 3 forts. It's easy for me to talk about Mickey Mouse. If you think about a big circle as the big fort, 2 satellite forts as Mickey Mouse's ears, okay? So they were laying a barrage from the bay towards the fort. And a cannon from Galvez's ship hit the magazine of the right ear, Mickey Mouse right ear, and it blew up. It killed over 100 British soldiers. It destroyed, I think about 24 cannon, and it injured several hundred British soldiers. And as a result, the commanding officer of this satellite fort immediately surrendered. Galvez moved his artillery into there. So at this time, he had troops from land, from Mobile. He had Mickey Mouse right ear, and he had all the ships in the bay, and they just began to plaster the British until finally the British commanders surrendered. Look again, this was 6 weeks, and every week, reinforcements came from Havana. Replenishment of supplies came from Havana. It was a well-greased machine. And I think of it, the only other event that I could, there are 2 other events in history that I'm reminded of. One was when William the Conqueror came across from Normandy conquering England, and that was a well-orchestrated attack. And then the Normandy invasion, D-Day, June 6, 1944. Well-planned, well-greased. So, next we're going to talk about there's another fort, and there's an arrow pointing to Fort St. Carlos, St. Louis that I mentioned, and up to the top is, right under Lake Michigan, is Fort St. Joseph, which was a British fort. Now, Fort San Carlos and St. Louis knew the British were going to attack them. So they prepared and they built a tower. And they put 3 cannon on this tower. This is an actual photograph. See the riverboat? But at the time, it didn't have a top. It was just open with 3 cannon. So they were attacked by, some historians say 1,300, others say 3,000. Mostly Indian allies of the British. And this is a painting of the battle. And when the cannon started firing, the Indians started running. Oh, that's the wrong slide. I'll see. There it is. The Indians started running. And that battle didn't last very long. So after that battle, they decided we've got to do something about the British. Galvez spies found out that the British the next spring were planning to come down the river, Mississippi River and take not only all of the Spanish forts on the west side of the river, but all the American forts that George Rogers Clark had set up on the right side of the river. Well, they said the best defense is good offense. So on January the 2nd, next slide, January 2nd of 1781, not advanced, they set up, and they went up the Illinois River for 300 miles. Can you imagine how cold it was January the 2nd? And after they, any of you ever canoed? No? Well, I used to belong to a canoe club, and the biggest problem I had was my thumb, because you're canoeing and you're banging your thumb against the side of the canoe, invariably, no matter how good a canoeist you are. Well, in cold weather, it hurts a lot worse. So then they marched for 300 miles from the top of the Illinois River to this Fort St. Joseph, Michigan. Who would have thought Spanish soldiers fighting in Michigan during the American Revolutionary War? You didn't learn that in high school, did you? Don't think so. I certainly didn't. But anyhow, they had a short battle. The British weren't expecting them. The fort was poorly manned. And not only did they defeat all the British and their Indian allies, but they captured all their supplies. And they divided mostly corn, is what they were going to eat. They were going to provide the corn to the Indians. But there were arms and ammunition in that food. So they took everything they could, and that was the end of that. And by that time, there had been an elimination of a threat from the northwest, from the west, and the south. So the British hopes of the Second Front were just vanished. So at this point in my presentation, I want to point out that our American Revolutionary War was just a small part in what really was the First World War. Because Spanish, England, and France were fighting. There were several battles in Central America over the control of Central America. And, next slide, there were several thousand British troops, several hundred British ships defending Gibraltar. Because Gibraltar is really part of the Spanish mainland. But by treaty, it was given to England hundreds of years before that. And it's still a form to the Spanish government. Still a form. Okay. They were also fighting in Goa. They were fighting in the Philippines. They were fighting in India. And anytime they ran across one another at sea, they had a sea battle. Now we come to almost the end of the American Revolutionary War. We know that there was about 6,000 English troops at Yorktown, and France had sent over a detachment that had landed in Rhode Island and marched their way down. But they hadn't been paid in months, and many of them were threatening to revolt, just to go away. And some of them did. They loved the American women, and many of them met and married American women and never came back. So George Washington asked Admiral de Grasse if he could get some of the French merchants in the Caribbean to loan money to the government. De Grasse was unable to raise that money. So then Washington asked Galvez. He was in New Orleans when he got the message. He got in his ship and went to Havana. It took him about 10 days to get down there. And within 24 hours of his arrival in Havana, he had raised 500,000 lira, which was enough not only to pay off the French army, but to pay off the American army. And there were 4 French ships that had aided in the attack of Pensacola. And they had all received damage, and Galvez brought them back to Havana, and he paid to have their ships repaired and replenished. And so he put all this gold on one of those 4 ships, and they head out to meet de Grasse at Yorktown. The French troops got paid, they loaned money to the Americans to pay off the American troops. Everybody was happy. Next slide. Well, by this time, our hero, Galvez, had become a folk hero. And if any of you have traveled to any of his battle sites besides Manchac, there are statues or busts of him. This is a cartoon that appeared in a lot of papers. Of course, Galveston was named after him, as was the county in the Galveston Bay. St. Bernard Parish in Louisiana is named after him. And his wife, Felicity, who we haven't talked about, had two parishes in Louisiana named after her. East Feliciana Parish and West Feliciana Parish. Next slide. Before the war, this is kind of out of place. This is a cathedral at Malaga, Spain. And you notice it only has one tower. Back in those days, it took hundreds of years to build a building like this. And so they had a fund in the church treasury that they were building up so they could have the new tower built. Galvez was a member of this church, and he asked the church fathers if they would give him money to buy arms and ammunition. Not only did they give him that money, the women of the church, many of them donated their gold and silver jewelry, which he sold in the arms and ammunition. So this town in Spain loves Galvez, and there are plaques there put up by both the daughters of the American Revolution and the sons of the American Revolution, thanking this church for their contribution. This is a stamp that the government authorized, and he received letters of appreciation from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, George Rogers Clark. He and George Rogers Clark became kind of buddies. There's a novel out about an alleged love affair between George Rogers Clark and the sister of the Lieutenant Governor in Fort St. Carlos, Leyva. It's an interesting novel, but I found nothing in my research that would verify any of that. Well, England finally signed the Treaty of Paris, September 1783. This is 2 years after our victory at Yorktown. And the single thing that forced them to sign this was while all the negotiation was going on, the Spanish Navy attacked and captured the 3 forts in the Bahamas. So they were left with only Jamaica. And they thought to themselves, I'm sure, if we don't want to lose our last vestige of ownership in the Caribbean, we better settle this war right now. And so this happened within days. They signed it within days of the capture. I had the pleasure of serving on the committee that made Congress honor its agreement in 1783 to hang his portrait in Congress. I was invited to attend. I only got 2 days' notice, and I couldn't do it. But 2 days later, he was declared. Next slide. This is statues of him in Washington, D.C. that was given to us by the King of Spain, our current king's father. We're trying to build one just like it in Galveston. The Sons of American Revolution already has the property, which the city has dedicated as a park, and they're about $300,000 short of their $400,000 goal. So if any of you want to contribute, I'm sure they'd be glad to accept your money. Next slide. He was made a citizen 2 days after his portrait was hung. He's the 7th individual ever to visit Winston Churchill to make a so he's up there with the big guys, you know. And I don't know why they don't talk about it in our school books. Next slide. Well, as I told you, the king asked me to write this book, and here it is. It received an award from the Texas Connection to the American Revolution as the best American Revolutionary War history book 2014. It's received 2 other awards, which I won't belabor you with. But I want to read this to you in case you can't see it very well. This is a review of my book from the lady who until very recently was the president of Texas A&M University in San Antonio, Maria Ferrier. Now, never has a more important book written that confirms what has been silent in our American history books. Our students identify closely with Mexico. Now, through Judge Butler's scholarly work, they can, as Americans, be proud of their ancestors' important role in the birth of our beloved nation. Every student of American history can now know the rest of the story. thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to stay here all afternoon and answer. No questions? Wow. Yes, sir.
In your research, did you come across there was like an order when Galvez entered the war? Didn't he issue a general like a call to order for all the Tejanos to sit there? He was announcing the first major cattle drive.
Well, that's in the book. I didn't talk about it, but in the book, what had happened, a hurricane hit New Orleans, and he had this huge herd of cattle that he was using to feed his troops. And of course, they had wheat fields and rye and barley and other kind of grains that they used to feed the cattle. Well, the hurricane killed the cattle and destroyed the fields. So he sent a representative to San Antonio, and he asked Governor Gil Ibarra at that time for cattle, and between 9,000 head and 15,000 head of cattle were sent, not just from San Antonio, but all the missions up and down the river, and many of the missions owned ranches, but many of the ranches were not owned by missions. And it's very important for those who might be trying to join the Sons of the American Revolution or the Daughters of the American Revolution, because we have a lot of their names. And if you can prove that you're descended from them, you can belong to one of these organizations. They sent, in addition, horses. They've had mules to perpetuate the herds. A lot of grain was sent, and a lot of the soldiers guarded, because back in those days the Comanche Indians were so bad in that part of Texas that they actually went up north to avoid the Comanches, and they had vaqueros that were helping them herd the cattle, and those vaqueros are also considered as patriots. So if you have an ancestor that was in one of the ranches along the San Antonio River or in that area, there's a good likelihood that you can prove eligibility for the SAR and DAR. Does that answer your question?
I read that a lot of the ranches in San Antonio, Gonzales, Nacogdoches were some of the major ranches, and that really Galvez has the distinction of having the first major cattle drive, and it isn't Big John Chisholm, but actually it was General Galvez.
It probably was. And there's a wonderful, short, easy-read book by Judge Robert Tonhoff called The Texas Connection to the American Revolutionary War. And it's all about the cattle drive. And he mentions a lot of names of the ranchers. And, yes. And also there's a book that was written in 1924 by a gentleman named Robert Churchill, who was at the time president of the Louisiana Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. And Mr. Churchill, his book, I have a copy, his book's about that thick, and it's page after page of muster rolls, donativo lists. We hadn't even talked about donativos, it's in my book. But while the war was going on, King Carlos sent out a missive all over the Spanish Empire, asking every Spanish citizen to donate 2 pesos, and every Indian, Negro, or non-Spanish citizen living, working, to give 1 peso. What is so interesting is I have muster rolls, donativo lists from Texas and California, and in both states, the average gift was 11.4 pesos. I mean, and that was a lot of money back in those days. But it just showed that the people were behind the war effort, which I think is very significant. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
I missed the point of why the French were given more publicity as aiding the revolution and the Spanish were quiet about it.
Well, the Spanish were quiet about it from 1776 to 1779 because they were negotiating with Portugal about South America. What countries, what landmass would be Spanish and what landmass would be Portuguese. And Portugal was an ally of England at that time. So they knew if they got in a knockdown, drag-out war with England, they would be at war with Portugal. And would screw up any chance they had to negotiate a favorable treaty. Does that answer your question? You had one, yes ma'am.
Interesting to find out about the war between France and Spain, 1500, in the Pedraza city of Pedraza, Spain, and France.
Well, I can't tell you about that, but I can tell you one of the reasons that Spain and England hated one another, the sinking of the Spanish Armada, 1588. And then the very next year, to add insult to injury, England sends over a convoy into Cadiz, and they capture the whole city, all the ships in the port, and operate the city, just loot the city. I have to admit that one of my ancestors was second in command of that English. Can't have it both ways, you know. Yes, ma'am.
I was reading about some of the battles up north, and I'm wondering, were the generals in contact with one another about tactics? Because some of the tactics you just mentioned were used up north.
Well, not about tactics, about strategy. Overall strategy. Tactics means like a battle. You know, I'm going to go this in a battle. But tactics means what we're going to do in this theater of operations. And there was communication. George Washington had a representative in New Orleans that dealt on a daily basis, and that was Oliver Pollock. Oliver Pollock was an Irishman, and he ended up being the middleman between the American government and Galvez. And he was the one who would say, we need so many types of medical supplies, we need uniforms, we need this, we need that. And one set of uniforms that was sent, they had to turn them down because they were redcoats. And one of the regiments in Spain wore red coats, but they didn't want to use those, and I can understand that.
And Galvez was educated too.
Yeah, Galvez was, he was fluent in French and English. When he was 16, he was in West Texas fighting Apaches. He was a captain in the infantry at age 16, pretty young fellow. And when he was 18, he was sent to France to a military academy from which he graduated with honors. While he was there, he became fluent in French. And because he was fluent in French, he was able to woo and marry Felicity, who was Creole. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Well, when you're dealing with two hosts, how did they keep in touch? I mean, days to write a letter?
Oh, it was days. They'd write a letter and they'd send it upstream. And of course, when it was going upstream, it was a lot slower coming downstream. And they waited long periods of time. And what they did a lot of times is there'd be a ship in New Orleans that was going to Philadelphia. Well, they'd put mail on there, and it would take weeks to get there. But that's pretty fast back in those days. Now something that's not mentioned: the Spanish, the Portuguese get credit for being the navigators, and they really were. They had some early navigators, but the Spanish were the ones who discovered. Well, let me back up. Benjamin Franklin made 6 trips across the Atlantic. So 6 over, 6 back, that's 12 trips, 12 voyages. On each voyage, he took every day, 3 times a day, barometric readings, and based on temperature and wind and all that, and based on his documentation, Spanish naval officers were able to figure out, hey, there's a Gulf Stream. And if we get in it going north, we'll get home 2 weeks faster. And we're going to avoid that sucker coming back. So they developed a plan where they would travel from west to east through using the Gulf Stream and come back on a southerly route. And Franklin sent a letter to the British Navy telling them about this. They ignored it. And it was not until after the war that they got it out and said, oops, we missed out on a good one there. And they couldn't figure out how the Spanish Navy was getting around so fast. And it was the Gulf Stream. Any other questions? Well, thanks a lot. If If any of you wish to purchase my book, it's $29.